Hello again and welcome to the Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Today we will be continuing our basic tactics series, looking at the Melta Gun. So for those of you that don't know what the basic tactics series is, essentially it's a series of videos that I put together aimed at newer Imperial Guard players. Maybe you've got yourself a few box sets, you start collecting, a couple of infantry sets, maybe a command box. You're building all these things and you just don't know which weapons you want to use. You don't know what's good and what's bad. So what I am doing with this series is I'm going through each weapon system available to the Imperial Guard, and focusing on what they do, essentially, what the weapons do, how much they cost in points, their intended battlefield role versus their actual battlefield role, and where you want to be using these different weapons in your army. So we've already covered the other special weapons. We've covered the sniper rifle, the flamethrower, the grenade launcher, and the plasma gun. I don't think there's any other special weapons available to the Imperial Guard. I know there are hotshot volley guns for Scions, but I'm going to do a separate series on Scions because they require a little bit more finesse, and they're different enough, and the tactics are different enough that they do require their own video series. But for now, let's focus on the Melta Gun. So, like I said, this video is aimed at newer players to help them figure out what they want to build, what they want to use, what's good, what's bad. It's also got some interesting information in there for more experienced players. Maybe there's a different take on something here that you've not considered before. Maybe a weapon system that you had written off editions ago, and you watch this video and hopefully it may convince you to try them out again. So, without further ado, let's get into the Melta Gun. So, what is the Melta Gun? Well, essentially, it is a short-range anti-tank weapon. It is designed primarily to melt tanks. Now, in the past, the Melta Gun has been a very niche weapon. It has been very good at killing one thing, which was vehicles. Now, in 8th edition, that has changed somewhat with the way the wounding system works. Melta Gun is still a fantastic anti-vehicle weapon, but it's also now good against monster creatures. So, what do you get in a Melta Gun? You get a single shot. It's an Assault 1 weapon, okay? But it's Strength 8, which is the highest natural strength of any of the special weapons. Not, obviously, we're talking natural strength here. Plasma, when overcharged, is also Strength 8. But it's the highest natural strength of any weapon. And it also has the greatest armor piercing value. It's AP -4. Nothing but the toughest units will get an armor save against the Melta Gun. The AP -4 is super important because against the majority of vehicles that you'll be facing, they will not get a save. Even Imperial Knights will not get an armor save. They'll get an invuln save. They'll get an invulnerable save, but they will not get an armor save. But, let's look at Land Raiders, for example. The toughest kid on the block. Land Raiders will only get a 6-up save against the Melta Gun. Melta Guns punch through armor. So, with such a with high strength, high AP, what's the drawback? Well, it's very short range. It's only got a 12-inch range. It's also only got one shot. So you either hit and you really hurt something, or you miss and you're potentially buggered. So the Melta has another special rule which needs to be mentioned, which is if you're within half range, so 6 inches, you get to roll 2d6 and pick the highest for the damage. Otherwise, if you're anything over 6 inches, you only get to roll 1d6 for the damage. So it's either 2d6 and pick the highest if you're really close, or 1d6. Now, that d6 damage is both the greatest strength and weakness of the Melta Gun. On the one hand, it is one of the few weapons which can, in one fell swoop, knock a vehicle down a bracket. Now, it's difficult with the way the new wound system works, and that most vehicles have got 10 plus wounds. The Melta Gun is no longer able to one-shot pop vehicles, but it is able to damage them to the point where they're probably knocked down a bracket, maybe even 2 brackets, with a little bit of help from some other weapons. So the Melta Gun is one of the few weapons that can reliably blow a chunk out of a vehicle. On the other hand, it's a d6 damage. You might get that shot through, you might get the wound through, you roll the damage, and you roll a 1. And essentially you've been left with an overpriced, like, grenade launcher or something stupid. You know, it's crazy. So the Melta Gun, it's an interesting weapon. Now, it has unfortunately received a rather large nerf. Before Chapter approved, I was a big fan of Melta Guns. In fact, for the longest time in general, I have been a proponent of Melta over Plasma. In 6th and 7th edition, I loved Melta Guns. Okay, in my pure infantry armies, I typically ran lots of Melta. I developed this tactic called the Melta Hedge, which is still somewhat viable. And the Melta was one of the, and the Melta was really, along with the las cannon, it was one of those, it really personified the go big or go home tactics, which are, in a nutshell, as Imperial Guard, you only hit half the time, so when you do hit, you might as well make the enemy hurt. Hit them with something big and tough. And that's what the Melta Gun used to be really good at. Now it's just so damn expensive. Plasma used to be the expensive option, and Melta was your budget option. If you couldn't afford Plasma, you took Melta. Now it's the other way around. In the hands of a basic guardsman with a 4+ ballistic skill, the Melta Gun will cost you 12 points. That is the price of a plasma gun and a grenade launcher. In the hands of a ballistic skill 3+ model, so we're talking Scions or Veterans, the Melta Gun comes in at a whopping 17 points. So it really is a tough weapon to sort of convince yourself to take. But I would argue it's still worth it. But it's, I think 17 points, it's not worth taking on veteran units. Okay, hear me out. On Scions and on Scions, it's definitely not worth it because you can't deep strike in within 6 inches. You have to stay 9 inches away. So with Scions, you wouldn't be able to get within that sweet Melta range. The only way to really get the Melta Gun is to make it worth the 17 points if you're putting it on a ballistic skill 3 model, is to put it on veterans and put those veterans in chimeras, and their job is to get out 9 inches and get within 6 inches of enemy vehicles and try and get the 2d6 bit the highest damage. That's what they've got to try and do. Problem is, if you're getting within 6 inches of an enemy unit and you don't kill it, there's a good chance all those veterans are going to die. And even if you do kill the unit, there's a good chance that your opponent will have other units around in his army that are going to come over and absolutely destroy your veterans. So Suicide Melta is really, it's tough. You know, like, I don't know if I really think Suicide Melta is worth it in this edition. If you want to take a Suicide unit, you're best taking Plasma, and then you've got the 12-inch rapid fire range. The Melta Gun does struggle in that regard. However, on your basic guardsman, it's only 12 points. Now, that's still expensive, but think about it this way. That's only 2 points more than what you used to pay for it back in 7th edition. So it's not really had a huge points increase. It's had a 2-point increase from edition to edition. The problem is that Plasma is so damn cheap. Okay, and that's really the question you've got to ask yourself is this Melta Gun going to do more than a Plasma Gun? And if it is going to do more than a Plasma Gun, is it going to do 5 points of, 5 points worth more damage? Bang for buck. Is this Melta Gun going to do more damage than if I had an extra, than a Plasma Gun and a grenade launcher combined? Now, initially your answer might be instinctively, well, no, that's 2 weapons versus 1. Yes, you are correct there. However, sometimes, let me say, the Melta Gun has two distinct advantages over the Plasma Gun. Okay, because they're the two that have always been in competition. It's the endless struggle. They're the two that have always been in competition, Plasma and Melta. So it's inevitable that we're going to compare them. The Melta Gun has two distinct advantages. Okay. Number one is it doesn't kill you. A Melta Gun has no overcharge. If you roll a 1 with a Melta Gun, you just miss. You don't die. Okay, so the Melta Gun, you're paying a little bit more points for that ability to not kill yourself. Like with the Plasma Gun, you could get that strength 8, you could get that 2 damage, but guess what? There's a good chance you're going to kill yourself. And the average roll on the damage with a Melta Gun is 3 damage. So you're paying 5 points more to always be strength 8, to have AP minus 4, which is incredible. Things just don't get a save versus AP minus 4 the majority of the time. And then the average amount of damage you're going to do is 3 or 4. That is a lot of damage. Okay, that has a lot of potential. And the second advantage is sometimes you just can't put a price on a d6 damage roll. Okay, sometimes you just need to absolutely melt the crap out of your opponent. Sometimes you just need to do d6 wounds. Let me tell you the number of times that I've just had to kill something, and you know what stepped up to the plate? Goddamn Melta Gun. That's what stepped up. Melta Guns are really useful. A good example, you almost can't put a price on the ability to do d6 damage. Example I have of this is in an upcoming battle report that I haven't posted it on the channel yet. I shoot a missile launcher. Now, obviously, this is not a Melta Gun, but hear me out. I shoot a missile launcher at a Space Marine captain, and he fails his armor save, and I kill him. And I wouldn't have killed him if it had been Plasma, because the Space Marine captain had 4 wounds left or something, and I rolled a 5 on the to wound dice. If that had been a Plasma, if I had skipped out, and that had been a Plasma, sorry, the Space Marine captain's on full wounds. If that had been a Plasma, even if I got both shots, both hits, and both wounds, I wouldn't have killed him. It would have been 4 damage. The captain would have been left alone on 1 wound. So, sometimes you just need to do d6 damage. And that is something that you really have to consider when it comes to choosing the Melta Gun. Now, the Melta Gun is expensive, and in points wise, it also can be kind of pricey to get your hands on in real life. As with the Plasma Gun, there are a number of ways you can go about it. You can buy a command box that gives you which £15.50. The officer box, that's KD9 Kachan. That will give you one Melta Gun. Okay. Now you can also buy the Space Marine Melta Guns. You can get 5 Melta Guns for £6, but you don't get any men with that. Okay. Now I believe there are another couple of. Oh, you can also buy. I don't know if I said it already. The Cadian Blister, which has a Plasma Gun and a Melta Gun in it for about £8. So, you've got options there. Maybe you want a mixture of both. You've got that covered. Now, there's also, and I have to find this 1 second. There are a few other areas that you can find Melta Guns, which you may not know about. So let me just find the right bit again. Cool. Right. Excellent. So, you can also get a Melta Gun, and this is a bit of a weird one that you might not have considered, in Colonel Schaffer's Last Chances. Now, that is a very old set, but it contains a lot of variety of models in it. You've got a guy with a bolt pistol, you've got which could be a sergeant, you've got or an officer. You've got Colonel Schaffer himself with plasma pistol and power sword. You've got a guy with a really cool looking officer with like las gun and las pistol and power sword. But you've also got a guy with a Melta Gun in there. He's like a convict with like an explosive collar. So that box set is really good for a whole variety of different characters that you could use. Now, but one I should say is there's a random Melta Gun in there. Now, something to consider. I don't know where else you can get Melta Guns from. I think, honestly, that is it. You can't buy a Tanith Melta Gun. Or can you? I think you can get a Tanith Melta Gun, actually. No, it's a Tanith Plasma Gun. Yeah, you've got the Catachat. I'm going through the pages now for the Imperial Guard. And you can't get a Steel Legion one. You can't get a Vestroyan one. It's Cadian Blister. There doesn't look to be a Catachan Blister. So that's it. You're limited on where you can get your Melta Guns from. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Just to sum this up, basically, the Melta Gun is a very expensive weapon, and it is a real brain teaser on whether you want to take it or not. Because on the one hand, you could essentially get 2 plasma guns for the same price. On the other hand, sometimes you just want to do that D6 damage. Sometimes you need to knock a vehicle bracket down. And it's actually, in terms of weapon systems that it goes alongside with, it actually goes really well with things like other anti-tank weapons like las cannons, because you can do this tactic called the Melta Hedge, where essentially you snipe, if you're facing against an assault army, you snipe away with your las cannon, so when the enemy gets close they have to charge into this hedge of Melta, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Melta Guns, and if you hit with the Melta Gun on Overwatch, a Melta Gun that hits something on Overwatch will generally kill it. And especially if you're getting charged by a monstrous creature, sometimes having that lucky Melta Gun hit can just stop your enemy in its tracks. You know, if your enemy is taking, especially if you've got like the Mordian stratagem, if your enemy is taking 6 or 7 Melta Guns on Overwatch, that can really, really mess with his plans. So, yeah, the Melta Gun, it's really good at killing tanks and characters and monstrous creatures. So, it is expensive, but I would say overall the Melta Gun is still a really good weapon. I just would only take it on Ballistic Skill 4+ models. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it's been useful. Please leave lots and lots of comments, lots of tactics for your Melta Guns, and of course I'll see you guys next time.